Now, if you look at question 1, what seems to be a common theme is question 1 is talking about getting decimal into 8-bit binary. Now, the first thing you should be thinking of there is a wee code that you do at the top, right? Remember in primary school, you used to do units and tens and hundreds and thousands. Binary just uses 2 numbers, so it just goes up in factors of 2. So you start off at 1, and then you go 2, and then you go 4. So 4 times 2 is 8, then you do 16, 32, then you go 64, and it's 128. So what we're looking to do is to try and find out what's the binary for 25. So all you do there is you've got the number 25, and we just see what numbers go into it, and if they fit into 25 you put a 1 underneath, if they don't you put a 0. So does 128 fit into 25? No, it doesn't. So if I put just a wee 0 down there. Does 64 go into 25? No, it doesn't. Another 0. 32 go into 25? That's another 0. Now 16, right? You can get 16 into 25 once. So once you do that, you then think, well, what's the remainder? So all you're doing is thinking 25 subtract 16, so we have to find what goes into 9. So 8 goes into 9, and we've got a wee 1 remainder. Does 4 go into 1? No, it doesn't. And does 2 go into 1? It doesn't. And 1 goes into 1, just the ones. So that's your answer there. A wee hint. You'll find if it's a odd number, it's always going to have a 1 at the very end, because if you think, oh, these are even numbers, and if you add up an odd number to any even number, you end up with an odd number. So that's the first one done, and it looks as though that's maybe a common thing that will appear in the very first question. That's you got your 1 mark. Now, if you look at the second question, they're asking you, there's a telephone number, and should it be stored as a text field, and why shouldn't it be stored as a numeric field? Now if you look at the number, it's not your typical number because there's a wee space there, okay, and that's just known as white space, and white space isn't a number, okay, so you can only have numbers stored in a numeric field, okay. That space there is invalid. So what you want to really be thinking of is the number contains a space, and then just say this is not a valid number. Now when I say a number contains a space, it would probably be better to make sure you actually write the telephone number, just so there's no confusion. Right, so the telephone number contains a space. This is not a valid number, okay, and that gets you your next mark. Now if I scroll down a wee bit more, what you'll find, next question is just talking about bus used to transfer instructions from the main memory to the processor. Now if I load up this paintbrush, what you'll find is, imagine that's your CPU, and imagine that's your memory. You'll actually, if you look inside a computer, not that I advise you to open one up, you'll actually find all these kind of cables that connect everything together, and there's one big cable, and it's used to transfer data from the CPU, so this is your CPU, up to your memory. And this data might be going to memory, or it might be coming back, but that data is called, or the bus, sorry, it's called the data bus, right? So data bus can be written to memory, so it's a memory write if it's going this way, and it's a memory read if it's going this way, okay? You don't need to know about memory writes or reads. All you do need to be aware of is a data bus is used to carry data from the processor to the memory, or from the memory to the processor. So that is your answer for question 3. It's a data bus. There you go. Right, so question 4. Right, companies must adhere to health and safety for employees, adjustable workstation chairs. What else could you have? Right, so there's a number of things that you'd have remembered. Okay, there's these monitors that you can tilt and swivel, and there's these ergonomically designed keyboards. So one of these would be a good enough answer. So I'll just say swivel and tilt monitor. So that would get your mark, but just in case you hadn't thought of that one, you could do an ergonomic keyboard. And that's one of these keyboards that, okay, so they've got a curve in the middle, okay, so it's a wee keyboard that, you know, looks like this, and the keys are here, and that's why many give you a more natural position when you're typing. Okay, so either of these would be a fine answer, and there are other types of answers as well. Okay, now obviously always have a look to see how many marks. So this one is worth 2 marks. Okay, so it's just essentially saying describe the purpose of JavaScript, a language. Now if you think about, just get rid of this. JavaScript is used in a lot of websites. If you think about when you maybe register for a form or register for a website, you might actually find that, say its name, you might find a wee star next to it, and that just means that's an essential field or an essential text box to write in. And what happens is JavaScript's used just to make sure there's the presence of some text there. And if there's not, it'll flag up that you have to fill it in. Okay, so it's quite often used for that. It can be used to add content to a web page. So you might find that there's a wee time at the bottom of the web page. This is using JavaScript. Okay, so JavaScript could be used to provide validation, or it can also be used just to provide dynamic content, and the word dynamic just means it's changing, so you're obviously going to want this to change to 43 when a minute's up. Okay, so when they ask you that, just think about, also some websites are quite interactive, so there might be pop-up boxes telling you what to do. Okay, so if you think about an answer that follows that type of theme to it, so what you could write is JavaScript is used to add interactivity. That just means it gives a platform for the user to interact with a piece of software. Now that would be for 1 mark. For the second mark is, well, what's it adding that interactivity to? And it would be a web page. So that's for your second mark. Okay, so talking about, it could even, you could say JavaScript could add validation to a form in a web page, or JavaScript could add obviously interactivity to a form in a web page, or JavaScript could add dynamic content to a web page. The main thing is it's used in the web pages. Okay, so if you get that, you get another 2 marks. Now I'll scroll down to the next page. Right, here's your database question, worth 2 marks. So basically just asking you, here's a database without cameras, and how's it been sorted? Okay, so when you're thinking about sorting, it's either going to be alphabetically, or it might be using numbers. Okay, and there's only 2 ways of sorting. There's ascending and descending. And just in case you've forgotten, remember, if you're descending, imagine that's your mountain, and you're making your way down the mountain. Okay, you're making a descent, so that goes from high up to low down. Okay, so that's could be high up in alphabet Z, down to A. And if you're ascending, that could be 10 to 1, okay? And if you're ascending, so that's descending. And if you're ascending, you might be in a wee plane, and that wee plane might be going from low down to high up, to taking your holidays. So low down might be A to Z, or 1 to 10. And if you're making an ascent, you're going from low down to high up, and that's called ascending. And some folk like to think of it as A to Z as like ascending, okay, so that's one wee tip. So if you remember that one, you know the other one is descending. So back to the question. Now we're trying to suss out what orders what, right? So if we look, we need to try and see if there's anything quite obvious, okay? So my eyes are drawn to this one first of all, okay? Because it goes from 16.6 to 2014, and it seems to be a certain progression from the numbers that are getting smaller and smaller. Obviously there's 3 at 16 and there's 5 at 14, but pretty much that seems to be one of them. Okay, so it's a case of thinking, and I'll just get this view out of here. Okay. So that seems to be, it's in the order, in a descending order in megapixels, and there must be another one. 2 marks, maybe 2 different orders. So if we have another wee look, is there any other one? So if we, quite often, if you actually start, if you look at maybe a band of the same number, so we've got 3 16s, if we then look to see, well, that goes 3, and then it goes 27 and 3, so that can't be 1. 21, 26, and then 21, that can't be 1. About 15, 21, 26, so that could be, sorry, so if you think 21, 15, 21, 26, so that might be, it's ascending, but if we go further down, 18, 26, 26, but now it's back down to 24, so this one can't be, okay, and that's a giveaway. If you look, that's getting higher and higher and higher and higher, and then it's low down again. So if we then, last column could be, well, that's a possibility, prices getting higher down this way. If we look at the 16s as well, prices is getting higher, so that must be another one. So what we've got is megapixels in descending order, okay, because it goes from high to low, and price in ascending order. So that's your 2 answers, so a line for each answer. So megapixel, excuse my writing, so megapixel in, and you can just write the abbreviation, descend order, and that is for 1 mark, and price in ascend order. Okay, so just to make sure you're happy, descending is when it goes from Z to A, or high number to low number. Ascending when it goes from A to Z, or small number or low number to high number. One's normally always quite obvious, and then you have to just look at these areas and then see, obviously these numbers are muddled. These are alright, but then we sussed out down here and that they're a bit muddled, and this is where we got to the price. Okay, so the second mark is a wee bit trickier, okay, but that's your database question. If you get all that right, you get your 2 marks. Now, question 7, right? So what we've got here is pseudocode, shows you a program that stores and processes race times in seconds with the 100 metre sprint. Nice, that's your 100 metres. So what we've got here, hopefully you'll be looking at this and thinking, well, we're holding the same type of data, okay? So it's the same data type because it's all got decimal points, and it's all about the same type of information, okay? And it's all about the same topic. So I'm hoping you're thinking that the data structure, okay, you've either got variables or arrays, but hopefully you'll be thinking, well, if they're taking the same information but about a lot of different things, it's an array, and that's a data structure. And you're looking at the data type, and that just is a type of data that's stored in this array, and hopefully you'll know by the fact it's got a decimal point, it's single. And just think about the wee dot above I is like a decimal point, okay, so single, and that is the data type. Okay, so we use arrays if there's a lot of times or a lot of edges or names, okay, if there's a lot of information we need to store, we don't need to have separate variables, so we use an array, and the data type is just essentially what information you're storing, okay, so you're thinking of your single because it's got a decimal point, and that's your 2 marks there, and that's your 2 marks here, okay, so if we now look at question 8 and 9, so here's your URL, okay, http thunes.co.uk partymusic/party.html, and it's just basically saying what type of file. Now you'll know just from your My Documents, if you look at a file, what's at the end of it, it's a file type, and what is at the end of this is the word HTML, and that's your file type, HTML. Now you got your mark there. If you look at 9, an online auction company suffered a denial of service attack. What is meant by a denial of service attack? You might have heard the term DOS, and how does it affect the users? Now, hope you remember, if we access a website, it's on a special computer called a web server, okay, so if you think of your wee web server is holding a website, and it has to get requested to get the website onto a laptop or onto another computer, okay, so that laptop requests to access the website and it gets loaded onto the computer. Now imagine you've got all of these laptops trying to access the website at the same time, loads of them, okay, so it's got all of these computers accessing it, and this is probably similar to what happened in the Commonwealth Games ticket website. It's not a denial of service attack, it's just that if there's so many computers trying to access the website, the server can't cope, okay, and the server can't cope, so it can crash, and that means everybody doesn't get their website, and that means all the people that try to buy tickets for the Commonwealth Games couldn't access them either, okay, or couldn't buy them. So describe what is meant by a denial of service attack, okay, and that is just really is flooding the server with a large amount of requests. So each time you type in a URL, you're actually requesting that website from that server, and it serves you the website, hence why it's called a server. Okay, and what's the effect have? Well, just when you use the Commonwealth Games website, this means it's not available to anyone. Okay, so the server is unavailable to its users. So if you write something that's similar to this, you get a mark for there, and you get a mark for there, and that's your total marks there, okay? So let's go to question 10. Right, biometrics, okay? Now, this is when bio comes from like biology, okay? So instead of usernames and passwords, which folk can steal, and try and guess. This is you using physical features of each person to actually identify them. Now, each person has their own unique retina, unique fingerprints, so it's actually a lot harder to forge these, if not impossible, than it is your username and your passwords. Okay, and if you've got a fingerprint and you've got a retina, you don't lose them, you don't forget them. If you go into a company, you might have a wee swipe card, you might forget that one day, and that means you can't get into the company. So what we've got is, there's quite a few benefits here. Okay, so first one, certainly reduces fraud, because you can't forge a fingerprint, so it reduces fraud, as this technology is hard to forge. Okay, so it reduces fraud as this technology is hard to forge. Right, that would get you your mark, but just in case you're not too sure, then you could also just say won't run the risk of losing IDs such as cards. Okay, so just think about, you can't really forge a fingerprint. Okay, so if you can't forge something, like you can forge money, right, and you can forge credit cards, but if you can't forge fingerprints or retinas, you're reducing the chance of somebody committing fraud. You're not going to forget your fingerprints, so you're not going to be losing your fingerprints, just like you can lose your cards as well. Okay. Second question, well, not second, but question 11. Operating system design is developing to take account of smartphones and tablets. Okay, so if you think about a smartphone and a tablet, if I just popped into here, you all know what they look like. Okay, so obviously they're small devices. If you think about it, you might be watching this if you're on a smartphone or on a tablet or you're on a laptop. Okay, so you had your laptop computers. Before that, you quite often had big desktop computers as well. Okay, so you'll probably notice these things are getting smaller. Okay, operating systems are needed, right? So an operating system is needed to run your computer. Okay, so the things that they need to take care of is when they're running, if it's on a wee phone, you need to make sure it's your hard drive space is small. Okay, so hard drive, your processor speed has to take into account the speed of the processor, your memory size as well. Okay, so the operating systems that are actually created for handheld devices need to be running devices that don't have that fast a processor compared to a desktop or a laptop, don't have much memory compared to a desktop or a laptop, and quite often they're plugged into the mains that can be plugged in. Battery power is often very crucial. Okay, so these operating systems must be able to basically take up not too much power. So when you're asked something like this, what you're at making sure is it has a low hardware requirements. Okay, so smartphone, operating system, must have low hardware requirements. So you can have ones with really, they're getting better with graphics, but you need to take care in mind that the graphics card on the phone is not as good in some desktops or laptops, okay? And obviously you're looking at power as well, so they should be able to run in battery powered devices and they shouldn't be taking up too much battery power, right? And that would get you your mark. Obviously if you look at the actual marking scheme on the SQA website, you'll see there's other alternatives, right? And the college has just upgraded all the computer equipment used by staff. Describe one issue when you're disposing of old equipment. Obviously old equipment may have hard drives in them, so you want to make sure all the data is wiped, okay? So you want to ensure data is wiped from a hard drive. Now sometimes it's pretty hard to actually wipe data, so this is when you have to get yourself a hammer, or not you personally, but this is when some companies actually have to get a hammer and actually break the hard drive, okay? So physical destruction, right? If you can't actually use software to erase it, you've got physical destruction. I wouldn't necessarily draw a hammer, but that's just to tell you. Right, so you just want to make sure that the data is wiped from the hard drive, and if need be, you actually physically have to destroy it, okay? Question 13 is describe the role of a file server and a client in a network. So if you think about your own classroom, right, you have, I'll see if I can draw this better this time. Right, you've got the server, which is through next door, and then you've got all these computers, okay? I'll just make these circles representing the computers, and these are called clients, and they're all connected. So anytime I put something into the server, you can all access it, so I don't need to actually physically load up each piece of software on each computer. So if I put this video that I'm making on the server next door, you should all be able to access it. I've not had to go to each person's computer and install it or load it up, okay? So what they're asking, okay, you've got a server and it provides storage, so I would be storing this video in that server and you can access it, okay? And it does a lot of other things, but what we can say is here is server provides central storage for all network users. Okay, I actually go back to the picture. Now, I'll say this is my computer and you can access the server. I can get different levels of access, okay? So you can access some things. I can access the staff folder, okay? And that's what the server does. It can provide different levels of access as well, right? So if you're talking about it can provide storage, then that you get your mark. It can also provide different levels of access. So there's a few possibilities, okay? So you've got your mark for that one and for that one. And if we scroll further down, here's your program, and hopefully you'll be sitting there thinking, what is this program doing? Because you have to state two techniques the programmer could use to make it more readable. First thing I see is a variable. There's this variable called n. Okay. There's other things that you could see in terms of you've got different statements, and quite often these are good if you maybe indented it a wee bit. Okay, it just makes it more readable. You've got other things such as comments. Okay, so it's always good to have comments, and when you did comments, you would put in a wee apostrophe, turn green in Visual Basic, and you could read it. The program ignores it, but actually allows you to look at the program and you can annotate what it does so somebody else can read it and actually suss out what your program does. Okay, so a couple of techniques for you. You could have your code indentation. And like a big one is meaningful variable names. You could even add comments, but obviously it's only a 2-mark question, so you're not going to get an extra mark. I'm going to also make that 3. Right, but that's another 2 marks there. And where in a computer system is binary instructions executed, okay, or stored before they're executed? That is the computer's memory, okay, so the computer holds data, but also holds instructions, okay, and that's your computer memory, and that is your next mark, and that is section 1 finished. So hopefully that was some use to you anyway, okay, so I'll stop recording now.